So we're talking about St. Paul Street Evangelization. We're all called to evangelize the faith. And this may be just how the Lord is calling you to do so. Joining us now to talk about that is Lea Wojciechowski Ross, and she is a cradle Catholic who loves how the Catholic Church is perfectly characterized through both intellectual richness and authentic encounter with Christ. Lea, thank you so much for joining us here in Epiphany.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So let's talk about St. Paul Street Evangelization. So what's going on right now? I understand, do you have a gala coming up in October, correct?
Yes, we do. We have our 7th annual fundraising gala coming up. The theme is the joy of evangelization, and we're very excited to bring back this event. It's been 4 years since before COVID, since we had it, so extra excited to plan the event and welcome a couple hundred people that night to hear Steve Ray and Sister Joseph Andrew from the Dominican Sisters of Mary, Mother of the Eucharist. So that is coming up on October 7th.
And how can people register for that?
They can go online to streetevangelization.com/gala, and there's all the details and the link to register right there.
And how does the annual fundraiser help you in the work that you do in St. Paul Street Evangelization?
Yeah, great question. Well, our mission is to train, equip, and mobilize Catholic disciples for the work of evangelization, which is our call. It's a joyful call. It's urgent, and we're all called to do it, to not just to be Catholic, but to share our faith. And that doesn't mean that we have to be perfectly versed in all of the apologetics and always have the right words. Of course, it helps to know a few things about our faith and be able to articulate them. But no matter where we are in our faith, we're in the right spot to be trained, to be mobilized, to go out and talk to people, and sometimes simply invite people to learn a little bit more about the faith. So what St. Paul Street Evangelization does with the funds, of course, is to train new teams to be more of that influence in their own communities, to go out to different dioceses all over the country, and we have over 200 teams already all over the country, but we want to have more teams, and we want to have more parishes and communities and dioceses and bishops on board to get this training so that people can know, okay, this is not as hard as maybe I think it is. All I need to do is have a couple tools in my back pocket, a couple key phrases or questions to get started with a conversation, and it's really amazing how many people will want to talk about the faith and share some really significant things from their own life so that they can share their journey and maybe use that as a starting point for evangelists to get a conversation going and invite them to learn more about Christ.
So, maybe you can give our listeners an idea of some of the things that you do. I know in the past, and I don't know if you were there this last year at the Catholic Corner at the Dream Cruise, but can you share with us those experiences and those kinds of events?
Sure. Yeah, so the Catholic Corner at the Dream Cruise, our team was out there again this year, back in August at Shrine in Royal Oak, as all the cars were coming by. So that's a great example. Also, we were at the Ann Arbor Art Fair this past July, where there were, of course, hundreds of thousands of people over that weekend in Ann Arbor. And so events like that, we have a table, and we have miraculous medals, blessed medals, medals of saints as well. St. Michael, my son loves St. Michael, so he has a medal from one of our tables when a team was out in downtown Rochester last year. And we have crucifixes, and we have rosaries, and we have pamphlets, and all kinds of information. And so what we typically do as people are passing by is say, hello, would you like a free rosary or a free medal? And just offer them something, give a nice smile, a warm welcome, show that Catholics are regular people, are kind people, right? We want to show the love and the joy of Christ primarily, to give that good image of Catholics and to invite people into a conversation, which is very non-confrontational. Sometimes people can think it's scary, or you don't want to chase people down and make them have a conversation, and we can seem like, oh, that's what Jehovah's Witnesses do, or that's what the Mormons do, or Protestants, or that Bible-thumping street preacher that you hear about. But we want to be the voice of Catholic evangelists and show, actually Catholics do evangelize, and they should evangelize, and it's not so hard. And all we need to do is put on a friendly face and listen to people, befriend people, and ask them about their own lives and have that conversation. So a lot of times, for me, my experience was it made it so much easier just to have that beginning point of having a medal or a rosary that are really nice, and people are sometimes surprised that they're free and that we're giving them away. And that can be a great starting point into a good conversation with anyone.
I also like how you said ask them about their own life. That's a coach approach to talking with people, and it's very non-threatening when you just, ask them questions, how they're doing, how their faith life is. So can you give us some of the responses you get and the reaction you get when you're out there communicating and inquiring about people?
Yeah, so a lot of times people will be very receptive, very friendly. They'll share, maybe they grew up Catholic. That's a very common one. Oh, I was raised Catholic. I kind of stopped going at some point, which you could say, yeah, tell me more. Like, what did that look like? When did that happen? And so on. And that can also help pinpoint maybe a specific issue that concerns them. And you can, sometimes apologize on behalf of the church, because sometimes people do have a bad experience with a priest or someone in the church or whatever it may be. Sometimes people will thank us for being out there. Sometimes they express surprise that there are Catholic evangelists out there, because, again, they expect maybe Protestant ministers or Jehovah's Witness, but not Catholics. That's not often seen. So people are surprised by that. I'd say, a lot of people who seem like they're just not interested, maybe they don't have good feelings about the church, if they don't want to talk, they're still, I'd say by and large, very friendly. They'll, respond again to that friendly smile and hello that you give, and they might just walk on by. But at least you can say, that they had a good experience for that millisecond with you, smiling at them and maybe saying, I'll pray for you if you get a chance. People love prayer as well. So, people almost always have something that they want or need prayer for. So sometimes they'll share that, sometimes they won't. You might say, well, God knows what you need and I'll pray for you anyway. And people are really very receptive to that.
So we're talking about St. Paul Street Evangelization today with Lea. And so how can people get involved, Lea? Like, tell us, people listening, and maybe the Lord is putting it on their heart to work with you at St. Paul Street Evangelization. What do they need to do?
Yeah, I'd say first go online to streetevangelization.com. There's so much information there about our mission and vision, what we do. I personally love looking at the map, streetevangelization.com/locations. It shows a really nice visual of a map of locations all across the country, over 200 teams that we have of evangelists going out into their local communities. And for each of those teams, there's a contact of the team leader, and so if somebody is interested and ready to go evangelizing with a team, they can easily find their closest location to wherever they live and contact that team leader to reach out and say, hey, when do you guys go out to evangelize? Where do you go? And can I come with you? And just observe, shadow, maybe from there. We also have lots of trainings that go on, and dioceses can request to have a training, or a parish can request to have a one-day training or even an hour talk, just to kind of get an idea of what we do and what the training looks like. Again, training even sounds like an intimidating word sometimes, like, oh, I need to be a perfect evangelist. I need to see the perfect thing. But it's really just a matter of building confidence and knowing that it's God speaking through you. And if you are open and willing to go out there and talk to people, then God will speak through you. And it's not so much pressure to say that, oh, I need to say the perfect thing. It's really just building that confidence and that trust that God is the one speaking through you.
So tell us a little bit, Lea. Give us a background of what led you into this ministry as a cradle Catholic, yet somebody with a background in education.
Yeah, so I kind of landed in the nonprofit world a number of years ago after I was teaching for a while, and I still do a little bit of teaching, tutoring on the side. And I knew that I always wanted to lead and to teach in some capacity. And I feel like I'm still doing that by my current work. And I did get into Young Catholic Professionals in the Detroit chapter a number of years ago, 6 years ago, when that chapter started. And that, I think, was really my starting point into the Catholic nonprofit world, where I saw what it looked like to make connections and collaboration with other organizations, other Catholic organizations. So through Young Catholic Professionals, I got very connected with Catholics all over Southeast Michigan, especially. Went to lots of events, met lots of people, and really became very excited at all of the work that different nonprofit organizations are doing. And I knew that I wanted to be part of that. So I continued to do outreach-type activities, and that kind of got me into the fundraising world, which I never thought I would be in. But here I am in the fundraising world, which, of course, we are called to steward our finances and to invest in the missions of the church. And we all have the same mission in the end, and that is to get ourselves to heaven and also to help lead others to heaven by God's grace. And so, but there are all these organizations doing it in slightly different ways, obviously. So, every organization has its own mission. St. Paul has its mission that's very, in my opinion, back to basics. This is what the earliest evangelists did, and it makes me very excited to see, again, that it's not so hard to be an evangelist. You just have to have that willingness, that confidence, that trust. Back to basics, back on the streets, one person at a time, having one conversation at a time. And so I find that very, very invigorating, very exciting.
So, Lea, tell us how being part of this ministry has enhanced your faith journey.
I think it's been a great reminder that everybody is searching for God. Everyone is searching for the truth. A lot of people, I'd say all of us, are not quite as aware of it as we should be, some of it more than others. But it's been a good reminder that everyone is searching, everyone wants truth, everyone wants God, and sometimes all it takes is a brief question or a simple smile to invite someone into conversation and to grow with them and to help them grow or think about something in a new way. So, for example, in Ann Arbor, in the summer when I was there at the art fair, I had a lot of great conversations at the booth over those few days of the art fair. And there was one young man who really sticks in my mind. He was probably in his mid-20s. And he said he had grown up Catholic. He left the church as a young adult when he was 18. And he was exploring different Protestant denominations, non-denominational. He had been part of a Calvinist church for a couple of years. Still didn't quite feel like he was at home. But he said that it was easier for him to leave the Catholic Church after 18 years than it was to leave the Calvinist church that he was part of for 2 years. And that was because the Calvinists didn't want to let him go. They tried to keep him. They kept inviting him back. Come on. They noticed that he had one foot out the door and was leaving. And he said, even though he had left the Catholic Church, he still thinks about it and how it really bothered him and still bothers him that the Catholics didn't try to keep him. They barely noticed that he left when he was 18. And he said, sometimes all I need is an invitation. Maybe that's what I needed. And so I was able in that moment to say, well, on behalf of the church, we want you back. You are invited to come back. And he said, I think I was waiting to hear that. And it was just such a moment of grace that it was so simple. All he needed was an invitation. All he needed was someone to notice that he was leaving and then to try to keep him there. So that was a great reminder for me in my faith that sometimes we just need a little bit of boldness, a little bit of trust to invite somebody to come to church with us or to come back to the church or to just notice whether they're there or not on a Sunday and to grow in that community within our own parishes.
Yeah. What a great I love you shared that because I'm a big proponent in inviting people to events, and your gala that's coming up is a wonderful opportunity to invite a friend or family member who may be lukewarm in their faith, who have left the church and just need that invitation, and sometimes it could be non-threatening and just go to an event with me. There's going to be great speakers, it's non-threatening, it's non-confrontational, it's very inviting, and I'm glad you shared that story, Lea. Thank you for sharing that with us. And so what else do you want to share with our listeners before we let you go here?
Yeah, well, I would love to invite people to register for the gala that we're having on October 7th in Troy. It's a Saturday, again, in Troy at the American Polish Cultural Center. It is free to attend, which is a new thing we're doing this year, but we're very excited to invite more people that way and to expand our community and to really give people a chance to learn more about what we do and to see how they can invest in the mission. So that is October 7th, a Saturday in Troy. StreetEvangelization.com/gala gives you the information, all the details, the link to register. It is required to reserve your seat, again, for free, but you do need to fill out that reservation form in order to reserve your seat. So StreetEvangelization.com/gala, October 7th. Would love to have lots of people there learning more about the mission and how they can get involved.
Lea, thank you so much, Wojciechowski Ross, joining us here in Epiphany. Thank you for sharing with us your story and more about St. Paul Street Evangelization. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vanessa. God bless you.
God bless you and all the work that you're doing.